These aren't motivational quotes, they're 12 brutal lessons that will take you to the next level. And if you don't know them yet, you can learn them from me right now. By the end of this video, you'll know the hard truths that separate people who break through from people who stall out. You'll walk away with the type of clarity most people almost never get, unless you spend decades falling on their face, which I've already done for you. You're welcome. I spent decades performing around the world, building businesses and chasing impossible dreams. I failed more than I've succeeded. And these 12 lessons are the difference between staying stuck and breaking through. Number 6 nearly cost me everything. I'm Selinger, a mentalist, magician, author, and dream expert. My work has taken me everywhere from Las Vegas stages to private performances for millionaires, but none of that happened until I learned these lessons. So let's get started. Number 1 is no one cares as much as you do. Your dream is your fire, but to everyone else, it's just a nice candle. When you've got a goal or vision burning in your soul, it's easy to think everyone else sees it the same way. And sometimes they do, for about 5 minutes, until they go back to thinking about lunch. In my book, The Dream Thief, I talk about the people you need around you to achieve big dreams, including the cheerleader archetype. You need those people, but here's the hard truth. They don't care as much as you do, and that makes perfect sense. It's not their dream. An exception is when you're building something together with someone, but even then, their passion will flare and fade differently than yours. The danger comes in when you get frustrated because they're not matching your enthusiasm. You stop talking to your cheerleaders. You cut off your strategists, and so long to your facilitators, and that's the death of your dream. The smart move? Understand this reality in advance. That way you can stop expecting other people to carry your fire and instead let them bring their own light to it. Number 2, talent is overrated, reps win. Talent is the gift everyone talks about, usually to explain why they're not where they want to be. Of course, talent matters. Some people do have a natural ability that lets them learn faster or hit milestones sooner, but in most pursuits, talent is wildly overestimated. When someone else succeeds, we say, oh, they're just naturally gifted. And when we struggle, we say, I guess I'm not that talented. Talent becomes this magical floating mist over any pursuit. It decides who's worthy, like some moody Greek god. And it's nonsense. Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant were freakishly talented. And they also practiced harder and longer with more intensity than anyone else in their sport. Like I said, Kobe Bryant's idea of rest was more drills. What matters far more than talent is putting in the reps, the practice, the deliberate work. Opportunities to fail so that you can create opportunities to succeed. Talent might set the height of your ceiling, but most people never build more than a foot off the ground because they're too busy staring at someone else's skyscraper. Stop looking up at theirs and start laying bricks on yours. Be agile, not fast. There's a difference between adjusting your sails and jumping overboard because the wind changed. We all want our dreams to happen faster. That's natural. And there are moments when you need to pivot quickly, to dodge an obstacle or to grab a rare opportunity. That's agility. But speed for speed's sake, that's where people crash. Moving too fast often creates more problems than it solves. I learned this the hard way. I had a plan to leave my stable job and move full-time into the creative world. I knew my timeline. But when an opportunity came to leave a year early, I jumped. Big mistake. The financial pressure set me back creatively for years. If I had trusted my original plan, I would have been ready. Opportunities need evaluation. Agility is about making smart adjustments without abandoning the structure that's actually carrying you forward. Fast can get you somewhere first, but agile gets you there ready. Nobody's coming to save you. There's no cavalry. If you hear hoofbeats, it's probably just your neighbor's kid playing basketball. This is a hard one because no one achieves a big dream entirely on their own. You need people in your corner, the cheerleader, the strategist, the facilitator. They're vital. But in the pursuit of a dream, there is almost always a moment where the poop hits the fan. Something goes so wrong you feel like you could lose it all. And sometimes in that moment, the people who've been cheering you on will vanish. Not because they don't love you, but because that's how the moment plays out. You look around for help, and your support team is suddenly busier than a cat at a laser pointer convention. Again, it's not because they don't care, they do, but they can't fix this for you. In those times, you have to understand nobody's coming to save you. No cavalry, no superhero swooping in. You're going to have to find your own way past this obstacle. It's like facing a locked door on your dream journey. There's a guard posted on the outside, and you realize you're the locksmith, the negotiator, and the battering ram all in one. You can't just sit down in the hallway and cry about it. Being aware of this reality in advance won't make it easier, but it will make you ready. Because when the moment comes, you'll already know that you need to make a plan. Get up, get moving, and get through it yourself. Your feelings don't care about your future. Your feelings are like toddlers on a sugar high, very loud, very convincing, and utterly uninterested in your 5-year plan. There's nothing like chasing a dream to show how much you're a slave to your feelings. Breakfast arrives a little bit late and suddenly you're hangry. The computer freezes and you react like the International Space Station just lost power. Feelings betray us. They tell us stories that feel real but often have very little to do with reality. And worse, we let them rewrite our plans. We change our mindset, even our strategy, just to satisfy whatever emotion is loudest in the moment. The problem, feelings only care about right now. They don't care about next month or next year. They want the itch scratched immediately. When you understand that the strongest feeling in the moment is usually rooted only in the moment, you could start making decisions differently. You can project into the future, taking the longer view. And sometimes you override these emotions because your feelings might want you to quit, but your future still wants you to win. Even when you've done everything right, it can still go wrong. Sometimes you play the perfect game, and then the stadium burns down. When you take a risk, you know there is a chance things could go wrong. Sometimes you roll the dice on a 50-50 shot, and when it crashes, you think, well, that's what I get. But the real blow is when you prepare so meticulously, so carefully, that failure isn't even on your radar. The sure thing, the one that can't miss. You followed all the advice, you ticked every box. You built everything exactly as it should be, and then it still collapses. This was me at the start of the pandemic. I had worked for years to launch a tour I knew would succeed. I rebuilt my show to be leaner and tighter. I marketed it with surgical precision. I built my name in those markets. This was going to be the tour, the one that paid off all those years of work and took us to the next level. And then the world shut down. It didn't matter I had done everything right. I still bore the consequences of a failure I didn't create. I'm not alone in this. Maybe you've had your own version. The lesson is this: not every crash is your fault. You can do everything right and still lose. And that's why you need to be emotionally ready for that possibility, because resilience is the only thing that gets you moving again. Preparation stacks the odds, but it never makes you bulletproof. Most people quit at 90%. Running a marathon and quitting at mile 25 doesn't make you a free spirit. It makes you someone who still has to walk home. The last 10% of any big goal is the hardest. It's where fatigue sets in, the novelty wears off, and the finish line somehow feels further than it did at the halfway point. Psychologists call this the goal gradient effect. Motivation should spike as we approach the finish line. In theory, that last stretch should be the easiest part to push through. But here's the paradox. That same stretch is where we find the grind most exhausting, and many people fold. They stop short, not because they can't finish, but because it's the least glamorous, most uncomfortable part of the process. That would be like building a house and deciding you're over it right before putting on the roof. Sure, the framing looks nice, but you're going to get soaked every time it rains. The truth, you can't cash in 90% of a dream. The last 10% is where the transformation happens. You are who you spend time with. If you hang around 5 golfers, you'll end up at the driving range. If you hang around 5 bank robbers, you're probably the getaway driver. It's a simple truth. We become like the people we spend time with. Think back to high school. Every school had its cliques. The jocks, the emos, the goths, the drama kids. I'm dating myself. You could spot them from a country mile away, not just because how they dress, but their mannerisms, the way they spoke, even the exact brand of sarcasm they used. We conform to the people around us. Psychologists call this social contagion, the process by which behaviors, attitudes, and emotions spread through groups. A 2014 study in psychological science found that everything from happiness to obesity can be spread through social networks simply by proximity and repeated exposure. But it's not just people. It's the ideas you keep company with, the music you listen to, the shows you binge, the books you read, the media you marinate in. Spend enough time with certain narratives, they will shape you whether you meant them to or not. If you consume endless conspiracy theory content, you don't just watch conspiracy theories, you start thinking them. So if you want to chart your course, be ruthless about who and what you spend time with. both in person and idea form. Because you can't choose every circumstance in life, but you can choose your crowd, and eventually your crowd becomes your compass. Success creates new problems. Success doesn't make your problems disappear, it just trades them in for newer, shinier ones. When we dream about success, we picture all the problems it will solve. And it will, but it also hands you a whole new set of them, often in packaging so pretty you don't notice right away. When I finally had a real breakthrough in my career, I was thrilled. I was touring. I even lived on cruise ships for long stretches. It sounded glamorous, and it kind of was. The travel, the performances, the adventure, but it came with a catch I didn't see coming. I lost my creative momentum. When you're always on the move or stuck in a fixed space at sea in a tiny cabin without a regular environment with your props, it's almost impossible to develop new material. You might have an idea, but you'll think, I'll get back to this when I'm home. Except you're never home. And that stunted my creative growth, precisely because I made it. Psychologists call this the arrival fallacy, the belief that once you reach a goal, happiness follows indefinitely. In reality, joy is fleeting. And before long, you're staring at fresh challenges, not the bliss you expected. So here's the takeaway, okay? Plan not only for success, but for the weird, unexpected problems that success brings with it. Because they'll show up whether you want them to or not. Success may make the view better, but it doesn't make the climb any less steep. Distraction is a dream killer. I've wasted so much time adding props to my show that at one point I was basically performing inside of a very expensive yard sale. I fell into this trap hard. I thought if I just added one more expensive prop here or the new lighting effect there, the performance would transcend. Spoiler alert, it didn't. What it did instead was distract me from doing the real work, honing the story, refining the pacing, stripping away the fluff. Distraction isn't just time lost, it is a dream-slowing epidemic. Research shows that environments brimming with interruptions drastically impair focus. Add in our obsession to multitask, which is just actually rapid task switching, and performance and attention take a measurable hit. In the 2000s, professors tracked how often people shifted attention while using devices. It was 150 seconds on average. A decade later, it dropped just to 47 seconds. We're scrolling, checking, consuming, and we're losing focus with each swipe. So here's the brutal truth. Distraction isn't a harmless luxury. It's a silent dream killer. Every extra layer that doesn't serve what matters is actually just noise. You can't outrun self-sabotage. If you bring all your baggage to the starting line, it doesn't matter how fast you run. You're still just a sprinter with a luggage problem. Here's the thing about chasing your dream. You don't leave you behind. Your patterns, your habits, your bad decisions, they all lace up their sneakers and run right alongside you. I've learned this firsthand. I had seasons where I thought changing my environment would solve everything. A new stage or a new city or a new whatever. But somehow the same old issues kept popping up. Missing a deadline or overcomplicating things or procrastinating or doom spiraling. It was like all my problems had a frequent flyer account. Psychologists have studied this for years. Dr. Gay Hendricks in The Big Leap calls it the upper limit problem. When we hit a ceiling of success we subconsciously feel comfortable with, and then we start tripping ourselves up. Research on self-handicapping shows that we often create obstacles for ourselves, like over-preparing the wrong things or leaving crucial work to the last minute. So if we fail, we have an excuse. The truth is that you could change cities, careers, continents, whatever, but if you don't deal with your patterns, they'll follow you like a bad sequel. You can outrun the competition, you can outrun the market, but you can't outrun yourself. And last, nobody remembers the excuses. When you cross the finish line, nobody asks if your shoelace was untied. And if you never cross it, they definitely don't want to hear the shoelace story. Here's the thing about excuses. They're vivid to you, but forgettable to everyone else. When you fall short, people remember the result, not the backstory. The audience at a canceled show doesn't carry the memory of a lighting failure. They just know the curtain never went up. I learned this in my own career. There have been times when a piece of the show went sideways for reasons completely out of my control. A prop failed, a cue misfired, a technical glitch took the wind out of a scene. And even when the explanation was legitimate, it didn't change the outcome. The audience never got to experience that moment. It simply didn't exist for them. What stays with them is the performance they did see, not the part that was supposed to happen. We judge others by the result, not their circumstances, while judging ourselves by our intentions. It's human nature, which means that, as unfair as it feels, the scoreboard is what gets remembered, not the commentary. Make the result happen. Push past the delay, the glitch, the bad timing. Fix it on the fly. Because when you win, no one cares what went wrong along the way. And when you lose, no one cares why. Excuses are like bloopers. They don't make the cut, but they're still a waste of time on set. 12 brutal lessons. They're not warm, they're not fuzzy, and they're definitely not the kind of thing you find stitched on a pillow. But they are the realities that will take you to the next level if you let them. And you don't have to learn all of them the hard way. That's why I'm here. I've lived them. I've bled for them. Now you could take them and run with them faster and further and smarter than I did. Because in the end, chasing your dream isn't about finding the easiest path. It's about building the strength to walk the one that actually gets you there. So take the lessons, lay your bricks, and keep going, because the skyline you're building is yours alone.